Married or single, father or fatherless, doesn't matter. We're calling you to the man cave right now. Conversations from the Cave is a raw self-help podcast dedicated to discussing men's issues, from pornography to parenting, from religion to real life, from learning to loving. We discuss the real issues that affect real men every day. Join us each week for powerful, revealing Conversations from the Cave. Now, your host, Kirk Kennedy.
Welcome to Conversations from the Cave. I am your host, Kirk Kennedy. You are hanging out with us for part 2. We got into some great stuff in part 1. We broached the topic of addiction and the journey from addiction to sobriety. The importance of self-examination, realization of those issues through introspection, and then how important forgiveness is to the process of healing, and being authentic and finding your authentic self as part of this journey to becoming whole. And there was also some discussion on how we go through these processes, and the struggle is still real. Struggle stays very, very real and sometimes is a lifelong journey. As time goes on, you may still be battling some of the challenges. But this journey is one that we have to have some positivity. And that positivity is that maybe we might have some relapses, but we're looking at it from a different place on the hill. Slim, you had made some comments during the break, and you actually checked me on last show with a very important comment, which is that we all have the freedom of choice and the ability to change, regardless of whether or not it's narcissism, whether or not it's drug addiction, porn addiction, sex addiction, whatever. I'd like for you to elaborate a little bit on the thought process you had to justify your thinking. I think it's brilliant.
Right. I guess let's start with narcissism, since that's what we were talking about. Kirk was giving me some ideas on how a narcissist... Do you want to describe your idea of narcissistic personality?
So, I was basically talking about how a lot of times in our last episode, we talked with Roy, who talked about bullying, and how he had to take a moment to get to a place of forgiveness by looking at the bully and what the bully gave him. So, not necessarily that the bully had just done wrong and the bully was a bad person. He may not have fully appreciated all that the bully brought. The bully did something wrong. He was still holding on to the wrong that the bully did, but he was able to find peace with that by recognizing that the bully did give him something. So when I talked about in my life, one of the biggest challenges I've had to face wasn't necessarily infidelity or wasn't necessarily drugs or what have you, but I did have to face an issue with a narcissist. And I would say, of the challenges that I had, now I've since had some good outcomes, and I made peace with those outcomes very similarly, but I didn't canonize it as well as Roy did. But I had made the comment errantly that I believed that you have to get to an understanding that narcissists may never change, and that you might have to place outside your life a toxic person, so that you don't end up in a codependent relationship with them, so that you can have your healthy space to continue growing beyond where you were when you picked the narcissist. So I had established errantly that potentially the narcissist was not able to change, or I communicated that was a potential inference from what I had said. And you picked up on that and said, no, I want to check you on it. I want you to think about the narcissist as a human being. And instead of they are the sum total of their bad actions, that they are a human being. And I was cautioning you by saying, well, they are human in the sense that they do have problems and they do have coping mechanisms, but their coping mechanisms can destroy if you allow them, you being involved with them. So you have to put I was stating that in dealing with a narcissist, the only way to deal with a narcissist is really to put them out of your lives, completely.
Right.
Right. So, you were saying that they have the ability to change, and I was questioning that errantly because everybody does.
So, exactly. So, taking this example, let's look at the narcissist as somebody who's going through, just like any other addiction, just an addiction, a personality disorder, that they need other people in their lives to feel good about themselves.
Right.
And they thrive off of putting other people down, for example.
Right.
Now, that's your narcissist, but if you look at that just as an individual who also has some sort of addiction, and you also mentioned that they don't have empathy.
Right. They don't have empathy, true empathy, because they don't feel like other people do.
Right.
They look at the end of their objective, and their objective is always to win.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the surface level details of like what the mechanics of their addiction. Mm-hmm. How when they win, they get that high, they get that acceptance, whatever it may be. It might be in their imagination, but they get that dose of the drug.
Right.
And that's just like any other addict out there who's hooked on this feeling.
Right.
Of getting that external completion by creating a certain circumstance.
Right.
So when you humanize them, when you humanize a narcissist or any person who has any issue, mm-hmm. what you're doing is you realize that it's a person who's hurting and they're going through their own pain, their own journey. And you are right, you have to look out for your health too. But at the same time, you have to come from an empathetic place. If they don't have the ability to empathize and you say, just because they can empathize, for me, I'm not going to empathize with them either. No, you do have the ability to empathize and you should. And you should realize that that person is going through something. They do have issues. They are trying to cope and survive. And it's unfortunate that they're not aware of their situation. And then when you tell them, or when the message they get is that they can change, they're a narcissist, they have this disease, then they never will change because from their understanding, they're stuck with the situation. Then they have to accept all the bad habits. But if you say, hey, you're a human being, you're doing stuff that is hurtful, and you can look around look at the people around you and try to improve yourself.
Right.
When you've given them that message, you already set them up for having a choice and mm-hmm. making that change.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead.
It's like the first thing they have to do is come out of denial that they even have an issue.
Right, and that's the one challenge with NSP, narcissistic NPD. Narcissistic personality disorder, by its very nature, makes the sick person live in denial. So, for example, if you talked with a true narcissist on any topic, more than likely, that narcissist is not going to, if it comes to a relationship, they would rather destroy you in the relationship than to concede. You understand? So, because it's all the value that they derive extrinsically, and even if they get you angry, that's the other thing. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative energy. Usually, negative energy gives them more. But it doesn't matter. It can be positive or negative energy that keeps them, kind of circulating.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand, and I understand what you're saying. The mechanism that they use for the addiction.
For their addiction, actually,
it can keep you in. It can keep you stuck in a situation.
Right.
And
so I was talking. I guess
you're talking from a perspective
of how to be free of the toxic person, not about the abuser.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that absolutely you have to look out for your health, and that's important. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you also have to humanize them. And you mentioned this whole idea of forgiveness, and you mentioned that story of the bully. Yep. And this bully, here's what I think, and this is how I tend to forgive people when I look back.
Okay.
Is that bully was in your life for 2 minutes or maybe like 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes, they gave you so much pain. Imagine how much pain they're carrying inside them.
Yeah, I agree.
And just imagine how much they're hurting and how like you need to empathize.
Yeah.
And that's where you forgive.
Right.
That 10 minutes with you gave me so much pain.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what a full lifetime with yourself is like in this situation.
Wow.
And
wow.
I'm so sorry that you're going through that.
Wow. That is so powerful. We're going to come back after the break and talk about that.
You're listening to the Conversations from the Cave Show with host Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew. You can search for the CFTC podcast on Alexa and Siri. CFTC is also available for download on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, Tumblr, Podcast Republic, and Google Play Music. Want your church or men's group to host the next CFTC Live Man Up Conference? Contact the crew on provoxmediagroup.com/man up. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
We're back. There was such a profound point. You made such a profound point before the break, Slim, that I think it bears repeating. I mean, the point of talking about a person not only causing so much pain to others, but what must they be feeling on a day-to-day basis to be able to inflict such pain and to keep people in their circle of orbit trapped. What must that be like? That, it's hard to even process that can even get to that. I mean, I'd never even, wow. That was the kind of empathy that just...
That's painful, but that's real because that is what's happening to that person. They're going through so much pain that
Wow.
they've lost their ability to be empathetic. And that's how they live their life every
Wow.
day.
Well, let me ask you a question since you're on this statement. Could that same feeling with the bully roll over into pornography, alcoholism?
That's how they medicate. They would. Are you saying? I guess I didn't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to say that. Are you saying that they would engage in these activities as a result of their pain?
Right, because that's what I did.
Right, it's the same pain. It's just a way of processing that pain. How do I process it? Well, what's my poison?
Because there's no real filters on where it's going to go. It's just that I'm dealing with pain. You know what? Let me go and deal with it the way I know how to deal with it. So if it's me sleeping with a bunch of women, or if it's me just wanting to go and do a lot of drinking, or is it me, just wanting to go shoot pool? We all have different ways to vent. My vent may not necessarily come out in bullying somebody, but my vent will come out in taking something that really I don't want, that doesn't belong to me, which is taking something from a woman that I know I'm not going to be with. She don't know my intentions, but my goal is
You're just
to
meeting
use her.
your need selfishly.
That's
and
it. Because of my frustration.
So I'm going to ask. I'm going to turn that over to you, Roy. I want to ask, when you were in your pre-sobriety days and you were doing these trips and deciding to get out there, at that time, did you feel like you were medicating pain?
Oh, gosh. Probably so, but talking about denial, I was in total denial that I had any pain going on. I didn't know that I feared rejection or anything like that. I didn't even realize, but yeah, absolutely. I would use women for whatever I could get out of them, and particularly prostitutes or one-night stands, where I knew that I could, there was no connection, there was no connection there, and I didn't have to worry about any strings being attached, and so yeah, I'd say I was medicating in a very powerful way without knowing it.
So, with your philosophy now, Slim, at that moment, you believe that empathy should have been accorded to Roy at that time? Or do you think it was on his journey? You made the point, which I think earlier was that you come to a crossroads. The guy who's the jerk doesn't want to be a jerk anymore. The woman who's loose doesn't want to be loose anymore. At what point do you feel like that philosophy would bear weight?
I think at that point, when there's there's a lack of awareness of the harm you're causing other people. I think what you want to hear is people tell you that you're hurting them. I think that's what you want to hear, because I personally believe, I don't know how you would process that, because it's very hard to tell somebody, hey, you have a problem, go fix it. No, I don't have a problem. What are you talking about? I'm fine. Mm-hmm. I'm living my life, especially when you're in that mindset. Mm-hmm. Any problem you might have. But if you tell the person, hey, this is what you do, this action of yours is causing me pain. It's hurting me. It's not okay. It's not healthy. When you do that, now you give them an opportunity to reflect on their behavior. And then they think, oh, why am I doing this? Why am I acting like this? And then
they're not narcissists.
But if you don't even do that, then you're not even giving them the opportunity to ask that question.
I agree with you. No, I was just saying, but
right.
Narcissists tend to thrive off of the fact that you just said you were in pain. See, that's the exact reason why I was concerned about narcissism in particular, because narcissists will, because you admit it, they will step on that more.
Right, but here's the thing. Now they know, and let's say at the end of the day, hopefully you run out of your poison. You run out of it. At some time you'll take a break. You're done. You're done, smoking or drinking or whatever it is.
Porning.
Yeah, porning. You're done porning.
Porning.
Yeah. You're done, and you wake up the next day and you're like, what the hell? Like, now you have time to introspect. So the narcissist might get that high in that moment, but next day they wake up and they realize this person is not in my life anymore, or this person hurt me.
Because that person made a choice or put a boundary.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, oh, wait. Why does this keep happening to me? What is going on? What is it about my life?
Now they're experiencing some uncomfortable pain.
Right. And that's important to experience. That is, I've been through that. At the time, it was the scariest thing.
Sure.
It's the scariest thing.
Sure.
You feel so alone, and you feel so strange, and you feel like a total outsider.
Yeah.
Because all the judgment, the internal judgment, everything's coming out.
Right.
But it's so important to go through that, because when you go through that, that's when you start making that change. That's when you realize, okay.
And then to me, what you describe, I would say would be a narcissist, a sadist narcissist, when someone is just getting their thrill of your pain and frustration.
Well, that's basically how they derive their energy. In other words, that's the abuse.
But that's not a bully. A bully is someone that just boom, 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 and they go about their business. You're describing, to me, what you're describing is someone that sees him crying, see Slim crying, and still bullying him, still beating on him.
Right.
Go around the corner like, come in, bring the whole.
Yeah. Not only will they do that, but while you're down, they'll bring other people to watch.
Right.
That's what narcissists do.
But a bully, from my experience, is seeing someone to come around, beat up on you for a little bit when they see you not really doing, oh man, forget him, man, don't worry about it.
That's not how, so that's why I was distinguishing between narcissism, not bullying. Narcissists do bully, but narcissism as a personality disorder is different. And one of the reasons why I was making a distinction is because oftentimes men who listen to these podcasts don't realize that there is a swath of people, particularly women who have had past abuse, which you talked about, the medicating, that will not have conscience. They are narcissists.
See, that's a very definitive statement to make, though.
Right.
Because they will not have conscience. You don't know that, because you don't know what their experience, their stream of consciousness is. Nobody knows that.
I will answer it a different way. I'll say it a different way. I will select better wording.
Yeah.
So they don't behave with it's when they don't behave in a comported manner, which results in outcomes that are healthy and wholesome for both parties.
But they're only selecting one party. It's not like they're going to come up in here and mess with all of this. They just come up here and mess with one.
Do.
No, you're talking, Kirk. Now, this is a very important point, because you keep going back to the dynamic of the narcissist. And now I want to ask you, what you're portraying is a situation where this another person who is with the narcissist and he's stuck there in the situation. What I'm talking about is just the individual, the narcissist themselves. Now I want to ask you this.
Sure.
Why is that other person stuck with the narcissist? Why
That's
is
my
he?
point.
And that now we want to talk about this other person. What is their high that they're getting out of this situation?
And we will talk about that right after the break.
The Conversations from the Cave show is sponsored by Optique Huntsville, signature looks for men with discriminating taste. Design your signature look with stylists from Optique Huntsville. For more information, call 256-886-7281. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
We were talking just before the break, and it was getting heated in the cave. And so the question was asked. Repeat it, Slim.
Kirk keeps bringing up this dynamic about the narcissist and how their kind of like tactics of how they stay afloat, or in relationships. Now, that's an interesting idea. But my question is, who's the other person involved in this relationship, and why are they with this narcissist? What is the other person? What's the other person's addiction that they're stuck in a situation where somebody's not treating them right, but they choose to stay in that situation? Let's talk about that for a second.
And you had a one-word answer for that, Roy.
I say it's codependency.
That's exactly the right answer. It's number one. Codependency is the single most complicit. It's the reason why most non-narcissistic people get involved with narcissists. So codependent relationships generally are. I will turn it over to Roy. Why are codependent relationships not considered normal relationships?
Well, because the codependent would take on the other person's problems as their own. And the joke is that when you die, you see the other person's life flash before your eyes instead of yours.
Right.
So it's just, I'm a codependent. I've struggled with that, and I've been delivered from that. But I was codependent with my adult kids. I controlled them. I tried to do everything for them. I made their mistakes my mistakes. Tried to fix everything they did. Bailed them out of jail. Paid for fines and tickets. Bought them cars that they destroyed. Bought them more cars. And I just kept doing this insane behavior over and over again, insanity. And I pretty much turned my kids into narcissists by the fact that I was
entitlement. Narcissists live with the idea of entitlement, and what they do is they will tend to come into your life. They come into the lives of people who are givers. They come into the lives of people that they think that they can weave themselves into their lives, and then what they do is then everybody around that person they will draw energy from. Right.
Now, see, here's the thing. Now, you've turned this giver into the saint, but that's not true because...
No, it's not.
No, so the question is, this giver...
is flawed.
Why are they giving now?
The reason why is just what he said, because you want to fix the problem.
Is that it? Or my question is, do you think that if they give them something, they're going to get something in return?
Absolutely. They're going to get... The belief is affirmation. The belief is whole relationships, consistency, loyalty, all of the things that... Love, acceptance. And those are the very things a narcissist can't provide. Those things are not part of what a narcissist can provide because they don't have that in their armamentarium.
How is that possible? Because we can clearly state that Roy was a narcissist.
No. Roy was not a narcissist.
But he turned his kids into one.
No. Roy was saying he was a codependent. There's a difference between being a codependent and being a narcissist. Just like it's different between being an enabler of an alcoholic and being the alcoholic. You can be an enabler of an alcoholic by allowing them opportunity to continue drinking and continuing to harm themselves and harm you in the process. That's an enabler. There are people who, when they get involved with a narcissist, may not know that they are narcissists to begin with.
See, and they're different. There have to be different levels to that, right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like we talk about narcissism, you talk about this like definitive black and white thing, but isn't it just the same issue? Just like an alcoholic, one could be drinking once a week, so the other could be drinking every night. Really extreme, two different types, but the same issue. So when you say a narcissist, like it could be a really bad case, or it could be somebody who's just
borderline
has these issues.
Right, there are levels of narcissism.
Right.
There are 3 levels of narcissists. There is the passive narcissist who doesn't really know that they're a narcissist. There's a person who's an intellectual narcissist who happens to know that they're narcissistic, and they actually use that. Then there's a high-level narcissist who's a master manipulator of people. And what they do is they weave themselves into the lives of their victims. And what they do is they begin to isolate their victims so that they can extract control from their victims. There's a difference when you have, now all narcissists will respond similarly in certain circumstances. They will all use manipulation, they'll all use hurt, they'll all use isolationism, they'll use lying, they'll use cheating, they'll use a bunch of things in codependent relationships to extract control so that they are solely and wholly in control. So if you leave them to their own devices, they will try to take everything you have from you. Everything. Your reputation, your finances, your character, your emotions. They will they basically come into your life to suck everything out of your life. That's all they do.
See, now it's so interesting how the conversation starts with the issues to
Right,
this definitive person who does this.
But what I'm saying is they might be doing that as a result of their hurts, but
Right.
their purpose is to derive that energy by doing those
To
things.
to
Deal with their insecurity.
to deal with the pain, to deal with the hurt, right?
Or to deal with their insecurity, or to deal with their addiction. So what ends up happening is they find people who can become codependent, who have something to lose, or may not have a fully formed self-percept. And that's the key. Once you have a fully formed, and this is the reason why I actually mentioned narcissism and why a person who was codependent should now work to be whole, because then narcissists don't have a hold on you. You can put a narcissist out of your life if you're not codependent. You can, because you recognize this person isn't doing me any good. They're just doing bad, and that's what makes them happy. They are happy when they're doing wrong and somebody else is bailing them out of it. Like, there are some narcissists, like Roy just described, who will actually feel entitled that when they run over their budget, you ought to pick up the bill. Or if they get their feelings hurt because they've stepped on someone else's toes, then you should go and fight for them and be loyal, even though they were the one who did the wrong. So a lot of times you spend your life putting out their fires, and they're creating them to keep you on the wheel, and they're making you responsible for their problems.
And a codependent doesn't know how to set any boundaries.
And they don't. That's right. And that's exactly right. So what ends up happening is, if you are a codependent individual and not fully whole, you don't have boundaries, and those people work their way in, and they put their tentacles in your life.
Tentacles.
They do. They put, and when I say tentacles, I mean that they put their hands in every aspect of your life.
I have a question for Roy, based on your comment.
Sure.
So, in this, the way Kirk describes it, it feels like this narcissist person, or they just have this evil motive. But do you think in codependent relationships there can be actual love and care for your partner, but despite that still have issues?
Well, I think, a codependent person typically is a loving person. And they just don't know how to set the boundaries, like I said. And the narcissist, which I'm pretty sure one of my kids is a narcissist, they think about themselves.
That's it.
They think about only themselves. They don't care about, it doesn't matter if they did something last week that just caused this big uproar. The very next week, they're, what? I'm not doing anything.
I'm not responsible
I'm
for
not
that.
responsible. You should love me. You should be helping me out.
Yeah, you should love me in spite of it. And generally speaking, what ends up happening is they will try to guilt the helper or the enabler, which will suck the enabler back in so that they can continue to suck off their energy.
You never loved me.
You never loved me if you don't do this for me.
So my question is, why can't the enabler be a narcissist at being an enabler?
So and the reason why, okay, because narcissists work off of empathy.
Right.
So when you have a person who is very sensitive, like you talked about, having an understanding that someone is dealing with pain, like, right? So let's imagine that you can look at someone and have a compassionate heart for them. Like, you don't want to see someone suffer. Like, an enabler doesn't necessarily want to see the alcoholic suffer. They don't want to see that. They want to have the alcoholic make a change, right? So you tell the alcoholic, please don't drink, because if you drink, then you make bad decisions which cause me harm and cause you harm. A rational person who realizes that love and compassion are involved in building a long-term relationship will actually say, I'm sorry I hurt you. I believe that I will take some time to look at myself, and I'm going to try to make some change. I'm going to personally commit to change. And then ask, help me to make, keep me accountable for these changes, or show me where I need to go to have these changes become a reality. That person is enabling that person to make a change. But by the same token, that same person who's with a person who's a narcissist may elect to enable that person whose addiction is them. In other words, getting something from the kind-hearted person is their addiction. In other words, siphoning off what they need, the energy off of that person. And then what they do is they guilt you into being that person for them on a consistent basis. In other words, I spent all my money. You should be helping me. If you're a guy, you should be helping pay my bills. Or
and so,
I'm going to use a couple of different examples because I don't want it to go down one line.
And that's what I'm trying to get at. Is I don't want, because what I'm saying, I hear exactly what you're saying. What I'm asking is, the enabler can also be a narcissist too. And the reason why I say that is because if I know he has the funding to fund my addictions or what I want, and I'm the narcissist that's going to always pry on his weakness, then he's a narcissist because his narcissist is his weakness. To me, it's not him an enabler.
No. I hear what you're saying, but narcissism, by definition, is extracting. It's taking from someone who, maybe by choice, has become an inadvertent giver.
Now, here's the thing. I kind of see where he's coming from. Now, here's the thing. You're saying the giver is just giving.
Right. I'm not saying that it's not toxic, and I'm not saying that the giver is perfect. I'm not saying that.
Okay, but here's the thing. The giver is just giving, and if the giver is giving because they want something back, isn't that narcissism? Because now you're sucking off of them. You're sucking off of their accomplishments, what the return you're getting from giving.
So...
You want
to feel that one? I can go on it, but I think that you may be able to offer another.
Because it's not that one person is sucking value out of the other. And we're going
to do that right after the break.
The Conversations from the Cave show is brought to you by the Alabama Cornea Care Center, Northern Alabama's first irregular cornea and sclera lens referral center. Dedicated to the management of complex irregular cornea cases, they provide hope and compassionate care for patients suffering from keratoconus, refractive surgery complications, and degenerative eye diseases. Call 256-937-1213 or visit alabamacorneacare.com for more details. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
We're back, and we are having a fabulous discussion. We've gone around this table, and clearly, where we left off before the break was this: is the codependent enabler a narcissist? Roy Kane, take it away, sir.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think that they both have issues. I think the narcissist has a different, by the definition of it, it's has a different.
It's different criteria for an enabler and a narcissist. It'd be like a different criteria. Both, for example, if you were to simply say a chicken and a turkey, they're both eaten birds that you would eat, but a chicken and a turkey are not the same bird. In other words, by definition, even though they both have wings and feathers and they're both eaten, they're not the same. That's what I'm saying.
Right. But here's the thing. Here's a problem with the label, and here's a problem that I have with the label.
You're a millennial. That's what you have a problem with the label. I could have said anything and it would have been
here's the thing.
label.
Here's the thing. They're two people.
Yeah.
They both think they're not enough.
Right.
They both want to get something out of the other person.
Right.
One of them is giving.
Right. And one of them is a receiver.
Is receiving.
Right.
This person is like, oh, this person loves me so much, they're willing to give me anything, and that's how I get my value.
Right.
The other person is like, oh, I am such a great giver. I'm
person,
such a great giver.
right.
I give this person what they want, and that makes me feel better about myself.
Absolutely.
That is narcissistic, because now you are taking that acceptance from them by
It's
giving. You're
it's
asking
a transaction.
It
becomes transactional.
Right. You're asking for something in return. And here's the problem I have with the labels: is let's say you have these two people,
Right.
and one of them in the relationship is a giver, the other is a taker, if you want to call it that. You say the taker is the narcissist, and they can't improve, but this giver can't improve, and because of their situation, because of their condition, as you said, they cannot improve. Now here's the thing. What if there's
No, I wasn't saying they couldn't. I retracted that part.
Here's what's important is, let's say we
I
have
retracted that.
Let's say we have these two
you're
people.
right.
They could have something as simple as a communication issue, where the codependent does not know how to express their needs, the narcissist does not know how to listen, and those are specific attributes that they can work on. Now you're not having a conversation about the narcissist and the codependent, the good or the bad. But now you're having a conversation about people who have their issues, and they can talk, they can conversate, they can work on these issues together if they choose to do so. But if you put them a label on them, you're a narcissist, and you don't have the ability, or your ability is limited. Now you're going to look at your partner, you're going to look at the things they're doing. You're not going to look at them as a person. Hey, this is a person who's not able to listen to my needs. Maybe I need to do a better job at expressing my needs, or maybe I need to do a better job at listening to what they're saying. Instead, what you're going to do is, this person is a narcissist. I need to get the hell out of here.
So
they're not a human anymore.
So I want to respond to that, and of course I'll give Roy a chance to comment as well. But first of all, your point is well taken. The first part of your point that I think is a very valid point. What I think I heard you say was the importance of recognizing people are flawed, and starting from the premise that all people are flawed. The giver was flawed in that scenario, as well as the receiver. I agree with you that both people in a codependent relationship are flawed. So that premise, I want to grant you that I understand. Okay, so that we're not in debate over that. Number two is, I also agree with you when you checked me on the comment earlier, which is that just because someone is labeled a narcissist does not necessarily mean they have absolutely no chance to change. Just like a person who is labeled an alcoholic, or labeled a sex addict, or labeled a porn addict, or labeled something, doesn't mean that you can't change from it. What we were simply saying is that the significance of that particular area is, by its very definition, it's very difficult to do that. Not impossible, but it is very difficult because of the nature of it. Just like when you're dealing with codependency, a lot of times codependency will draw you into your relationships that make you feel like it's love, but it becomes very transactional. It's not unconditional, it's always with a price, and usually that price is higher than each person in the relationship is able to continue paying. The key that I wanted to sort of say that I agree with you on is that I do believe we all have the facility of choice. That choice can be applied to change. So I agree with that. And I was incorrect in intimating or suggesting that there was no room for change in the narcissist. And may have been also incorrect in, I don't know that I would tell a narcissist that I think they're a narcissist and that I would jet. I wouldn't do that. One, because a narcissist isn't going to listen to you tell them they're a narcissist. They're not. Number two, they're going to find another reason to invalidate the fact that they're a narcissist. That's not going to, it's just not going to work. I mean, you won't get out of the relationship by telling them that and hitting the door. You have to get away from narcissists differently than that. And that's a whole nother podcast, which maybe we'll have to deal with that on another Sunday. But dealing with narcissism is a completely different type of codependent relationship than just simple codependence, because of the nature of the issues that they have, and the boundaries that you have to set. And I think, Roy, you made mention of the importance of the boundaries and why those things have to be put in place, not only for the protection of the enabler, codependent enabler, if you will, I'm going to put that in quotes, but also to the well-being of the individual who's indulging in it. Can you tell us why? And then we'll wrap this thing up.
Well, because my issue was I didn't know how to say no. And my kids would do these things that had bad choices, that would have negative consequences. And it always hit me with it at the last minute, like, you've got to fix this now or else something's going to happen. I'm going to go to jail, or I'm not going to be able to drive or something. And I didn't know how to say no. Instead of letting them face their consequences of their own decisions,
Right.
and letting them have that kind of motivation from
Right.
the pain, I would fix their problem, and they would learn nothing.
Right. They wouldn't feel the pain of a bad decision.
Right.
And sometimes the pain of a bad decision, I can, speak personally, until I went through a really awful divorce, I don't know that I could really say to any of my friends, if they had a really bad relationship, that I wouldn't advise them have a divorce. Just get a new one. I mean, I was almost offhand in my thought process of that. She's a bad choice. Get a new one. That's terrible. Now, being on the other side of divorce, I recognize that isn't a good bit of advice. It's not good advice. It's terrible advice. It's terrible advice because not only are you being wounded, but you're literally cutting yourself loose from another human being who has interwoven. You've become one, in a matter of speaking, and you're getting pulled away from the person you've become one with. The challenge of that is when you're dealing with that pain, oftentimes because the pain is so great, what do you want to do? You quickly want to have someone replace that space because there's pain. So instead of healing, a lot of times then a repeat occurs to avoid the pain. And
Right.
that's a second form of codependency,
Right.
where you're dealing with pain and therefore you're medicating your pain with a relationship.
And you're just cycling through that.
And you're cycling through
Right,
that, and then
right.
it builds upon it and builds upon
Right,
it.
and the pain you mentioned, I think that's important. That's an important part of the process of
Yes.
being on the journey. You
And
have
being healthy.
You have to feel that pain,
Right.
and and I just hope for people out there that whenever they go through that pain, that they have, for example, this podcast, or they have something to listen to, some resource that they can find, and get the healing they need. Be it a narcissist or an
The
enabler.
one thing that I love about what he's saying is that there's hope for the narcissist.
For everyone. There is hope for everyone.
There is hope for everyone.
Everyone. And I don't want to live in a world where there's
isn't
not.
hope. Yeah.
I want there to
and
be
I
hope
think
for
you're
everyone.
absolutely right. I think you're right. Are you saying the same thing?
Yes, I agree.
And how about you?
Well, and I'd like to add something too to kind of get back on Celebrate Recovery. Is one of the things he mentioned, or Slim mentioned, that hate the sinner, not the sin, or hate the sin, not the sinner.
Right.
Said that backwards. But at Celebrate Recovery, another thing that makes us different is we don't identify ourselves with our struggle.
Right.
Like Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, would say, "You're an alcoholic." That's how you.
Hi, I'm Bill, and I'm an alcoholic,
Right.
or whatever. Yeah.
At Celebrate Recovery, we don't do that. We identify ourselves as children of Christ, and we say we struggle with whatever.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
because that's our struggles do not identify us as who
Right.
we are.
Right.
And
That
this
is beautiful. That is
And
beautiful.
you know what's funny about that is I like the way you stated that. Hi, I'm Hollis, and I'm a sex addiction. That's my weakness. I just labeled myself. I just put myself in a category of
And that's what
speaking-
you're saying,
right?
though,
right?
You just
You-
spoke
you-
something
you
bad right
did-
back into my life because
Right.
there's power in the tongue.
You haven't even distanced yourself, your real self,
Right.
from the problem. How are you going to discover your real self when you don't even separate from the problem?
Right, right.
Narcissism might be the problem, but the real self, there's an individual, a person inside that's stuck in that.
So celebrate recovery. I like that method.
That is.
We'll be right back after these messages.
The Conversations from the Cave show is sponsored by Optique Huntsville, signature looks for men with discriminating taste. Design your signature look with stylists from Optique Huntsville. For more information, call 256-886-7281. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
We want to thank Roy Kane for sitting in the Man Cave. Thank you so much, sir. You have brought a unique perspective. Thank you also for sharing about Celebrate Recovery. Can you give us the contact information for the local chapter here in Huntsville, and then maybe the national website before we go?
Well, again, I'll say go to celebraterecovery.com and look at the group locator, because we have one meeting in every night of the week here in Huntsville.
Okay.
So I couldn't give you the contact of all of them, but
Right, yeah.
there is one meeting every night of the week. Whenever you're available, you can find a group to meet.
Okay. And also for Slim, I want to thank you for being back in the cave. It's been a couple of weeks. Glad you're back safely from the East Coast and having your input. Appreciated that.
Absolutely.
And also, NOLA 69, 67. Which one
You know,
is it?
it's amazing.
73. That was
There we go.
73. I had to
There
get
we
it. NOLA 73. I want to thank you for burning up the highways to get back here and to make your comments and your thought processes known, coming all the way in from Indiana. You guys, you just don't know how important this work is, and I really appreciate that all of you guys have taken this valuable time out of your schedules to minister to guys who are hurting and to give them hope. And I thank you guys so much for that. We'll be back next week with another show. And until next time, love one another.
Conversations from the Cave is brought to you by the Alabama Cornea Care Center, a copywritten production of the Provox Media Group, creators of positive, inspirational media for businesses and nonprofit organizations around the world. For more information, visit the Provox Media Group at provoxmediagroup.com or call 256-886-0405. The views expressed on this program are the personal beliefs of the panelists and do not necessarily represent the beliefs of the Provox Media Group or its sponsors.